Oh,
Guess we,
Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Personnel Administration and Higher Education Committee. It's October 3rd. First order of business, I'd like to have a motion to approve the minutes from the prior meeting. Supervisor Driscoll, Supervisor Dean, any questions, comments, changes? Seeing none, call that question. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Seeing none, that carries. Privilege of the floor. Any comments? Seeing none, we move forward. Next item, the action item, City Adirondack, Dr. Duffy. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. I just have a few quick updates for you. You may have seen in the Post-Star, but we've started a new initiative to ensure that our local high school students know they have a place at SUNY Adirondack. So last week we celebrated admitting the entire senior class at Queensbury High School, which was wonderful. We threw t-shirts, there was swag, everyone was excited. Our mascot, Eddie Rondak, was there to celebrate. And it's kicking off actually the same initiative in several of our local high schools, so that, again, we ensure that everyone knows they have a place at SUNY Adirondack. And it's kind of fun, no matter what student it is, to have your first college acceptance already under your belt. So we're really excited about that new initiative. We also are spending this semester and then into next semester really diving deep into how the college can continue and even enhance our services for what we call adult learners, the market of higher education that really has the largest potential of being able to not only provide the training and upskilling that people need, but also to expand our reach. So we've hired a national expert to come in and help assess how are we doing currently serving our adult learners and what could we do even better in the future. So that will be step one. Another initiative we're taking on, as you may remember, back in April of this year, our Saratoga, what has been an extension center, was granted a new designation by the state education department as a branch campus, which what that means to us is that we can now offer full degree and certificate programs at our Saratoga campus. Prior to that, we were only able to offer between 50 and 75% of a degree. It's just the regulations of the state education department. So we're really taking this opportunity to say, what can we do differently at Saratoga that maybe wouldn't be as needed in Queensbury? You know, there are different needs based on the community. So again, we've hired some facilitators to help us gather some data, not only from our external communities, so our business leaders, our economic development and chamber members in the Saratoga County area, but also internally so that we can create potentially a new vision for our branch campus in Saratoga, which we think will enhance our enrollment and our ability to serve that county. As you know, of course, financially, we receive the largest amount of funding from Saratoga County through the chargeback formula. So enhancing enrollment in Saratoga County is not only just good business to be a good provider of education, but also it helps us stabilize our finances in the future. And then in the finance realm and on the Boohoo side of things, you probably heard that Anne-Marie Scheidegger, our Vice President for Administrative Services and Treasurer, is abandoning us and going to a great opportunity at RPI. I know many of you have worked with Anne-Marie over several years. She's been at the college over 13 years. We will miss her tremendously. If you're able to, we're having a small reception for her, probably be bigger than I think, but next Monday at 3 o'clock on campus in the Bishop Conference Room, which is in the Scoville Learning Center. But we, of course, wish Anne-Marie well. I can assure you we will do everything we can to find a good replacement, of course, for Anne-Marie. There's no replacing her, but certainly there are people that can do the work. So we've launched an immediate search, and that will take place over the next several weeks, and we'll be gathering candidates and working through that process to have someone in place as soon as possible. I can assure you, and if you've worked with any of her team, we have a great team in that division of the college. So I have all the confidence in the world that we will continue to do the good work in terms of being good stewards of our finances, but we certainly wish Anne-Marie well. And of course, you probably know Supervisor Wild is your representative on the Presidential Search Committee, which that work is kicking off. The ad has been placed nationally, and those they'll be gathering candidates over the next couple of months, and you'll be hearing more about that, I'm sure, from Supervisor Wild as that process continues. So that's my update for today, but I'm happy to answer any questions.
Ben?
Thank you. Chris, I'm just interested, if you have that number, what percentage of your population are adult learners?
It's about 20% or so.
Nice.
And we tend to categorize that as 25 and older just because
Right,
that's
yeah,
sort of a
sure, yeah.
standard, but of course we would say at 18 people are adults. But those people that may have other obligations and.
Okay, great,
Yeah.
thanks.
Yeah, sure.
Any other questions for Dr. Duffy? Well, Chris, I'm sorry that I'm on that executive committee search because I'd rather have you stick around for us, but good luck
Appreciate it.
coming forward. Thank you.
Thank you.
Moving forward, thank you.
Thank you. Have a good day.
Human Resources. Is Jackie here? Jackie.
Hi. Good morning. The first item I have is the report on tracking of vacancies filled. If anybody has any questions, I'm happy to answer those. If not, it's there for your review. Questions? So my 2025 budget request, you'll see I submitted two reports, two of the summary reports, just to demonstrate the combination of the civil service and HR department. The headline news is that the combined requests this year from last year, it's almost $100,000 decrease. It's like 99,000 something. So I crushed my 5% savings goal that we were asked to do. Most things we kept pretty steady. I haven't been through a whole cycle, being over both sides of the office. So I didn't want to make cuts because I'm just not sure until I've been through the whole process once where we're going to land, but happy to answer any questions about that as well.
Any questions for Jackie? Seeing none. Thank you, Jackie. Nice and quick. Item 3, request items to be discussed by the clerk of the board. Amanda, I'll turn this over to you if you don't mind.
Sure. My first request is for a transfer of funds from an amount of $75,000. We're running short in the coroner's budget on the medical examiners and count, and that's what we use to pay for our autopsies. We're hoping this 75,000 will get us through the end of the year, but the bills are coming in. They come in slow, and right now we're paying the bills from July and August still, so that's what we're looking for. I did put in the request as a transfer of funds from the contingent account, but depending on how the finance committee feels about that next meeting, it may change to appropriation from the general fund, depending on the balance.
Okay. Need a motion to bring this to the floor. Supervisor Ritu, Supervisor Bean on the second. Any questions, comments? Call the question. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Seeing none, that carries. Over to 3B.
So my next request is for a transfer of funds in the amount of $12,280, also from the contingent account. This is to cover the cost of 2 invoices we recently received from the treasurer's office for bonding. These were unanticipated, so I do not have the money in the court's budget for that.
Motion to bring this to the floor. Supervisor Driscoll, Supervisor Merlino, thank you. Any questions, comments? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion carries. Item C.
C is a request to amend resolution 219 of 2024 that relates to approving the standard workday and time reporting resolution for elected officials for retirement. We had to update that to include a few quarterly employees who we just received their record of activities. We need to update that and get it posted so we can get that into the state.
Motion for this. Supervisor Ritu, Supervisor Thompson on the second. Thank you. Any questions, comments? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Seeing none, that carries. Item D, the budget review.
So I have several budgets that I manage for the board and for my office. I did provide summaries for each of those. You've already had a chance to look at those, and if you have any questions, if you haven't had a chance to look at them and you want to take a look. Questions you have?
Any questions from the committee? Seeing none. Thank you, Amanda. Move over to item 4. Mr. Colvin's not here today, but we do have a representative from his team to talk about a couple of contracts and a budget.
Hello. First item is a request to transfer from the computer reserve for some hardware upgrades for the 3 departments listed.
A motion to bring this to the floor. Supervisor Molino on the first. The second, Supervisor Bean, thank you. Questions, comments? Seeing none, call the question. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion carries. Item B,
The second item is a request to extend a contract with Windstream, who is our telephone service provider. And that's in order to get our on-site equipment upgraded. We're upgrading our phone system to a new protocol. And this is money that's in the budget. It's not an increase in money, it's just cleaning up the contract to adjust for the new phone system services and hardware that we'll need.
need a motion to bring this to the floor. Supervisor Bean, Supervisor Thomas on the second. Any questions, comments? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That carries. Review of the budget.
All right, I got some notes here from Mike. Basically, we're pretty well consistent with last year. Our subscription line is going up, mostly related to cybersecurity requirements from various insurance mandates and such. Cybersecurity, as you know, is very important. I don't know if you're aware of that Suffolk County incident, but that ended up costing them $25 million for that one incident. So staying on top of this, very important.
Is there anything that they were doing different from us to allow them to get exposed?
One thing that came out in their report was they did have decentralized IT and they weren't communicating with each other, and this one was doing something that this one wasn't, and that created a hole that allowed that attack to occur.
They weren't doing a lot of their upgrades and updates on their individual computers, which we do centralize, and that puts us ahead of that a little bit.
It's a very expensive.
That's right. It's costly money.
Are there any gaps we need to fill?
Not currently, no, we're staying on top of that. Some of these new subscriptions. We have the know before training, which we push out to all users required. All of our Palo Alto is updated daily to scan for new threats. And we have a new Netrix platform, which allowed us to see who accessed what files, when, and have complete control over that monitoring ability too.
Okay, any questions from the committee on the budget? Seeing none, I guess we're all set. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Moving to item 5, workforce development. I don't see Liza here, but she has a request to create a new position for the fiscal coordinator. Annual salary $52,674 effective October 21st of 2024, and delete the position of employment and training account manager, grade 13, base salary of $61,136. Motion to bring this to the floor. Supervisor Etu, Supervisor Maydan, second. Thank you. Any questions?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I can explain this briefly. I think we did it once before, but the bottom line is she has a person who's in the position of employment and training account manager at the grade 13 who will be retiring in January. And so we're creating this position now, fiscal coordinator, with an annual salary of $52,674. That's the replacement for her person who's going to retire. Once that person retires, we will completely delete the position of employment and training account manager. So it's just a temporary additional position so we can get some overlap for a month or two until the person who has the position retires.
Any questions regarding this issue? Sorry, did I ask for a motion to bring this to the floor? I did. So the question, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That carries. Moving on to item 6, I see Kevin Hajos here. Kevin, would you mind talking about the 2 requests you have?
Absolutely. So both these requests are for adding positions to my solid waste division under DPW. The reason being is, as you all are aware, if you were at Public Works the other day, we will start hauling for the towns starting January 1st. But I'd like to have a couple individuals in beforehand to train them so that come January 1st, we're ready to roll. Typically, we've calculated about 150 hauls per month for the towns. Some of the towns may not use all their services. Other towns will use everything from solid waste to recyclables to C&D. So this again would create these 2 positions. One's a full-time position, which would be the solid waste supervisor, and the other one would be an MEO medium part-time, which would basically just be a driver. The supervisor will also be a driver, but he will also coordinate a lot of the hauls with the towns through our solid waste and compliance coordinator, Scott Royal. So it's for the both positions.
So we're gonna move both at the same time? Supervisor Molina on the first, Supervisor Mayday on the second. Any questions, comments for Kevin? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That carries. Thank you, Kevin. Moving on to the county attorney. Larry?
Yes, good morning. The first item on the county attorney portion of the agenda under 7 is for a resolution adopting a copyright policy for Warren County. What you'll see in your packets at item 7-1 is the proposed policy for your consideration. It's 1 page and 5 lines. The practical purpose for this policy is that under the advice from our risk manager, a new position which this committee was kind enough to provide, along with the Board of Supervisors, one of the policies that insurance companies look for when determining insurability and ratings for municipalities is this policy here. So this would be the first policy that I'm aware of. Materials.
Bring this motion to the floor. Supervisor Bean, Supervisor Etu on the second. Any questions, comments? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion carries.
Second item on the agenda is a resolution request for a new contract with the New York State Industries for the Disabled, NYSEG, for mail fulfillment services relating to the annual tax foreclosure lawsuit. As I've mentioned in the past few months, New York State has moved forward and enacted new statutory procedures for the tax foreclosure process. Some of those procedures modified the method and ability of municipalities to recoup or recover costs incurred through that process. Based on those modifications, Warren County will be able to increase their recovery of expenses that are incurred. So this is also a request, because on the flip side, there's some more stringent requirements regarding service, proof of service, and timing on service. I reached out to NYSEG to determine what their costs would be to take over this process. And really what we're talking about is providing service on plus or minus 800, what we call interested parties each year. So those are not just individuals who are the owners of parcels in foreclosure, but anybody that we've been able to identify through records checks, title searches, that may have an interest in that parcel. So based on that estimate of 800, which is more or less an average that we've had through the past few years, the cost for NICID to take what we provide them, reproduce it, package it, label it, use their internal process to verify addresses, to receive returns of unreceived packages, and then to follow up with the New York State Postal Service to do a second mailing, and then to provide us an affidavit that states they did every single one of those steps. What this contract does, but practically what it does is it frees up my staff that's ill equipped to take on that mailing, which while there's 800 interested parties, it's actually 1,600 packages that get mailed, because each party gets two, one by certified mail, one by regular mail. So the expense is an expense that's been included in the proposal that we'll cover. And as a result, there's also been adjustments to various lines in the 400s under the budget to account for a substantial portion of this contract cost as well. So subject to any questions you have, that's the request number 2 with NICID.
Motion to bring this to the floor. Supervisor Bean, Supervisor Ritu on the second. Questions, comments? See, none. I have one. Larry, we're going to get revenue to offset this expense, right?
Yes, it's not clear that it'll be 100% offset, but I think between some budget reductions and the additional revenue that we receive, or we can keep through the process, it will wash. It's just a question of, it's not a dollar for dollar wash, because some items like postage for my department will substantially decrease because it's included now in this NICID contract. So it's not, I can't say it's a dollar for dollar offset with revenue, but with other adjustments, it more or less covers the cost of this contract.
Okay. Any other questions from the committee? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That motion carries. On to item 3.
That's just deferred 3 and 4 until after the executive session.
Okay,
And if that's okay, I'll move right to
without objection.
item number 5, which is proposing to introduce local law 7 of 2024, which would rescind local law 4 of 2008. There's a short version and a long version. The short version is 2008, Warren County enacted a local law that fixed specific employee benefits, providing out-of-unit employees with payout upon retirement for their accrued sick leave. It also provided by local law a 50% reimbursement of educational expenses incurred by employees through coursework. In 2013 and 2020, the county enacted 2 separate resolutions which had terms regarding each of these items different than the local law. But at no time has a local law been enacted to rescind those employee benefits that were provided to employees in 2008. So this proposed local law would rescind 2008 and enable the Board of Supervisors at their November board meeting to move forward with resolutions regarding each of these employee benefits if they chose to going forward. Specifically, the resolution in 2013 said that effective January 1, 2013, employees that were out of unit no longer had the benefit of a payout those employees that started after January first of 2013 would no longer have a payout upon retirement. That was not effective because you cannot terminate a local law by a resolution. So this local law cleans up and performs housekeeping that prior boards wanted to achieve, thought they had achieved, but did not, because a resolution was used to make the modification rather than a law. That's the short version.
Motion to the, motion to bring this to the floor. Supervisor Molino, thank you. Second, Supervisor Ritu, any questions, comments? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Seeing none, that passes.
And request number 6 is a request to transfer funds from budget code A1990469 contingent account, other payments, contributions to budget line A1420440.2 for transcription fees in the amount of 3,000. I have referred to the older lawsuits that evolved or began before I started as county attorney as kind of our legacy lawsuits at this point, because now I've been here coming up on 3 years. And we continue to have self-representation because there was no insurance activated on some of those lawsuits. The result is we're paying the expenses rather than those expenses being incurred and running through outside the council and the insurance policies. So this is an additional $3,000 to cover the costs of transcriptions that were done related to deposition for one of those uncovered, uninsured lawsuits.
Motion to bring this to the floor. Supervisor Ritu, Supervisor Bean on the second. Any questions, comments? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That carries. Larry, do you want to go into discussion items first? Because most of that is your parlay.
Yep, let me first do some public discussion under number 2, litigation update for matters that I can refer to because they're matters of public record. And what I wanted to bring attention to really was under the notices of claim and administrative complaints section. You'll see 5 of those 8 potential future claims that we've received notice of circled and highlighted. The reason I want to bring it up is because the first one is Goshlag and the Goshlags from November of 2023. Third one, Irene Esposito. The fourth one, Carol Rockwell. And the 7th one, Joseph Brady. During the first 60 days of our risk manager being on board, she's been able to effectively work with our insurance carrier to close or to get an assignment and tender of that claim to the party that was actually responsible. That's tremendous because historically, these claims have continued. Outside counsel have been assigned and have incurred costs until such time as a lawsuit was filed and a motion to dismiss could or could not be filed to try to dismiss the lawsuit. Every claim or lawsuit that we're able to close, once again, puts us in a better position for purposes of insurance rating going into our upcoming insurance renewal for 2025. And honestly, it's not something that anyone on the pre-existing staff had subject matter experience with, meaning negotiating and working through how to actually close these claims quickly. One of the claims we received in August, and it was the end of August, number 7. It was closed in less than 3 weeks, which means that there was really no costs incurred because the matter never got assigned for a 50H to outside counsel after it was reported. Number 4, Tara Rockwell. I've discussed that with you on prior occasions. That's the employee of a subcontractor who was working on the construction project at Countryside and the remodeling and renovations at Countryside. He fell from an elevated height, which is a labor law claim that provides for strict liability. And we have now been able to tender the claim to the insurance carrier for the general contractor, and their insurance company is proceeding with the defense of Warren County and the contractor in that matter. Number 3 is now closed. That was a matter we previously discussed. Irene Esposito. It was assigned to council. 50H examinations were performed, and it was determined that there was an open question as to where this woman actually fell. And through some additional research that was done, in early September, late August and early September, we were internally able to determine that the plaintiff actually fell at a location that was not owned or controlled by Warren County. And we were able to contact the property owner, notify them of the potential claim, and have tendered that claim to their insurance carrier for any future defense that may come about. So this is the direction the county attorney's office seeks to move forward with going forward, which is really a proactive approach rather than a reactive approach to claims against the county. With that public comment, let me go into the department budget, which you all have received. Provided some summary slides that were available for the budget committee. Overall, revenues in the budget will increase, not through any effort of our own, but really through the changes to the law. There'll be a approximately 23% increase in the revenues. In this budget, the personnel 100s increases just a little bit more than 17,000. That's the part-time salary for the risk manager. I humbly think that it's possible that we've covered that in a way that you're not going to see through the closing of those claims that we've just mentioned. It's going to continue to pay county in an intangible and a tangible way going forward into 2025. The 400 lines have increased by just over 25% for 2025. And I think the two pieces in there is on the personnel side, one thing just to outside of the budget, but really even looking toward 2026, is I think our juvenile delinquency petition filing could be approaching, it's going to exceed, it has exceeded last year, we could be approaching 100 for 2024. I'm the committee members that in 2018, the county attorney's office had 8. And what's so significant about that is everything that some members may have heard from the district attorney's office about what's required to proceed on a criminal case is required on each and every juvenile delinquency matter, except we also have to prepare a petition that contains firsthand information in support of every allegation that's an element of the crime charge. So we don't get to, it's not a general statement like you would see in a complaint or even in an indictment, but a very specific production of sworn statements has to support every element of every claim against each individual juvenile delinquent before a petition can be filed. And that requires us to review in its entirety all of the discovery that we get, which is the same type of detail to include body cameras that the district attorney's office is currently doing. And I say that in part because then it ties into the 400s where you see an increase in the subscription line of 25% from 11,000 to 15,000 for Clio, which is our practice management software, as well as what we're looking to start using in 25, which is our Microsoft 365. Those two we're going to integrate. So the way we're moving from 8 petitions to potentially 100 petitions is by trying to, one, spend more staff time working on them, but two, creating some efficiencies through a practice management subscription that costs additional money, but is far, far less than an additional body, which may be something that the county attorney's office will be looking at in 2026, but certainly not for 2025. So some of the changes in the 400 you'll see are reductions on telephones. The largest is outside counsel as we continue to wrap up those uncovered no insurance coverage lawsuits. We believe we'll be able to bring that number down a substantial amount from over $100,000 to $55,000 for 2025. So that's kind of a summary of really an update of where we're at in the county attorney's office, what we're looking to accomplish in 25. If there's any questions on the budget that's been submitted, please let me know.
Any questions from the committee? I do have one, Larry. I'm just confused. Why is the county attorney's staff preparing all this information for the juveniles? Would think that would be part of the district attorney's office.
It used to be before New York State enacted raise the age legislation, which removed criminal responsibility from, as a blanket statement, individuals who commit crimes under the penal law who are under the age of 18, except in certain circumstances. So previously, 16 and 17-year-olds were prosecuted as adults by the district attorney's office. Those cases transferred from the local town courts and criminal jurisdiction of the county court to the New York State Family Court. And under the Family Court Act, juvenile delinquents are the responsibility of what's called the presentment agency, which by statute is the county attorney's office. And there has been an increase in the number of reported crimes by individuals under the age of 18. There's distinctions in that, whereas individuals who are 17 who commit felonies may end up outside of the juvenile delinquency process. But 17-year-olds who commit misdemeanors are clearly within the jurisdiction of the family court. And the focus is no longer punishment. It's on best interests of the child and rehabilitation efforts. And while I say that we're approaching 100 petitions in the county attorney's office, that means there's far more than 100 potential juvenile delinquencies that have been referred to probation for probation action, because probation is required to undertake efforts to avoid that minor's case going to the county attorney's office, being referred to the county attorney's office for action as a juvenile delinquency. So the numbers for both the probation office, which would have to be substantially more than the number of petitions filed, because we only get the ones that, for example, may not show up or refuse to adhere to the requests of the probation office, or the ones that require an immediate order of protection be issued. That requires the filing, preparation, review, and filing of a petition, and then a request for an order of protection for any victims in the action. So that's why those numbers that used to be with the district attorney's office are now squarely with the county attorney's office, which is, I'm absolutely fine with, and I'm grateful for having prosecution experience as a state prosecutor at the local and state level. I didn't realize how much I would be using that. My staff would be using and developing same type of experience as an assistant district attorney does while serving as an assistant county attorney.
Thank you, Chairman. I'm certainly not challenging the district attorney's office's budget, because they're plenty busy. But would this change in New York state law be reflective in the budget for the district attorney's office? They're not assuming these duties and responsibilities now the county attorney's office is.
This happened in 2018 and 2019, and
Okay.
then was followed really the cherry on top of the sundae was the changes that occurred to discovery. And the substantial amount of production of additional documents for criminal action, which also then falls and flows through to the juvenile delinquency. So not only did the numbers increase, the amount and requirements of data review, and document review, and video review. You could spend 2 or 3 hours going through a body cam before you file a petition, because you want to make sure there's not something in there that's contrary to the allegations that are set forth in that petition. Whereas that happens after criminal complaint typically gets filed by a law enforcement officer. We take those criminal complaints prepared by police officers, law enforcement officers. They do not get filed with the family court, but they become part of the basis for the petition that then gets filed for a juvenile delinquency.
Any other questions? Nate? Oh, Jen, of course.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. Just to talk about that a little bit as well. So the district attorney, the discovery laws have changed their workload significantly, but they have also received funding from the state, aid to prosecution money to offset that. So that's been helpful for the district attorney, even with a dramatically increased workload. The county attorney's office has not received any additional funding for the work they're now doing. And I defer to the county attorney, but I think his workload in this regard has probably increased over 50%, with the responsibility they have with the juveniles that they have to deal with in family court, and has the probation office, as he said. So we've talked a few times in the past about increased workload. We may be coming next year with increased personnel requests for the county attorney and possibly the probation officer. I just want to keep that in mind. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Kevin?
And just to add to that, if I could, the probation office and the county attorney's office, there was no grant funding. There's no additional funding from the state. That I think there's a budget line for it, but I don't think a dollar was ever received for it from the state of New York. And every county is in the same situation. And then I'm on the horse and I can't get off, right? Now you're dealing with detention issues. Hundreds of thousands of dollars of detention costs because we have an individual who we're filing a petition on as a juvenile delinquency who may have committed violent, serious offenses and is being, I'll say ungovernable, not following the requirements, rules, and requests of the probation department. So we have no ability and no safe place to place that individual except in a facility that the county pays for unless and until there's a final disposition of that juvenile delinquency case.
Kevin,
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
I'm gonna get on, I'll climb on the county attorney's,
The separate course.
soapbox as well.
It's a separate course.
Yeah, separate horse, okay. But just for example, recently, DSS has received a bill, and I have it in my journal report of transfers for the finance committee. But they're receiving bills now from Westchester County for juveniles who are in detention down there that DSS did not even know about. They're court-ordered detentions. And so now we're getting additional bills against other organizations in the county for these related issues we're talking. Thanks.
And the only way we're truly getting it done, and I'm wrong if I don't say it, is because we have some very gifted assistant county attorneys working in my office. And without them being able to sit and do that type of work, as well as all the other civil work and in-house counsel work that they still do, I wouldn't be able to do it myself. I wouldn't be here right now if I had to do it myself.
Kevin,
Mr. Chairman, yeah, it's again more unfunded mandates by the state of New York for the counties. It's just lovely. Thank you so much.
Ben, you had
Yeah, I
another?
was just gonna say, that's another item to add to the NISAC, we need your help list.
You know, that's reality, but can't change the state with what they're doing to us. I do have one question, and I'm not sure if it really fits here or not, but I'm thinking about ARPA money. And I don't know if we have any left, but in my mind, some of this is a direct impact of what happened during COVID. And I'm just wondering if we might be able to use some of those funds, if we could free up some funds for something like this to support this activity.
I have a discussion about that at the finance.
Okay, I'll stick around. Thank you. Larry, it's still you know.
With that said, I would ask for an executive session to talk about pending litigation, specifically.
Hey, listen, this is the first time in a couple of months. Yeah. It's well, but
The conversation is going to be opioid litigation actions. A project will be Target Corporation and Henry Sheehan, SCHEIN. Second matter is going to be lawsuit of Jasmine Ernest versus the town of Queensbury and the other co-defendants.
So motion to bring this to the floor. Supervisor Bean, Supervisor Driscoll.
If I could just amend, I apologize. If the county treasurer can be included in that as we're going to be discussing funds and funding.
Without objection, can we modify that motion? Is it good? Supervisor Bean, Supervisor Driscoll. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? We will enter an executive session.